bonsoir, and welcome to the Get French Football News Show. I'm Nathan Staples, and joining me this week are Eric Devin and Philippe Bargil. We're almost a third of the way through the season, and slowly but surely, things are beginning to take shape. Sometimes I tell you there's plenty to talk about on the show. There is a lot to talk about this week, so please stay tuned. But before we get to all that, here are the latest headlines. In a set of weekend fixtures somewhat lacking goals, if not excitement, Paris Saint-Germain started the weekend off with a 1-0 victory away at Rennes. Angel Di Maria breaking the deadlock on 75 minutes to send the leaders 10 points clear at the top of the league. Saturday's early match saw Reims continue their road struggles, yet to score away from home this season as Saint-Etienne ran out 3-0 winners at the Stade Guichard. Prince Oniangé contributing to the visitors' woes with a spectacular own goal. In the multiplex, Lyon got another needed win to keep pace with their own rivals, despite needing a late penalty to see off 10 men Troyes, who look in real danger of drifting away at the bottom of the league. The danger was underlined in superb fashion by Gazalek Ajaccio, who scored a brace from Mohamed Larbi to keep Bordeaux winless away from home by winning 2-0. The hosts now sit level with Montpellier and Toulouse, who drew 1-1, and they're on 9 points. Goal difference are keeping La Payade out of the bottom three. In Corsica, Rémy Vacoup couldn't have done better as a Sadio Diallo free kick bounced into his net to give Bastia a 1-0 win over Caen, who slipped to 5th position, a point behind Angers, Lyon and Saint-Etienne. The real fireworks came on Saturday, however, were reserved for a heated Breton derby. I think that's putting it lightly, as Lorient came from behind twice thanks to Benjamin Mukonjo, whose 7 goals see him second in the scoring charts. But the real story, however, was Maji Waris's sending off, who lashed out at Jimmy Briand after a tackle, earning a straight red card. Sunday saw less in the way of goals, with Nice and Lille playing out a scoreless draw before an injury-hit Monaco held off Angers 1-0 to earn their first home win of the campaign. Marseille earned 3 points at Nantes, thanks to Les Canaries' former player, Georges Kevin Nkoudou, whose goal was the difference, much to the dismay of the home crowd. In the Coupe de la Ligue in midweek, the round of 32 saw a few upsets as Ligue 2 sides including Tours, Bourg-en-Bresse and Dijon store off their top-flight rivals. The competition continues in December with the 6 European competitors joining with their 10 winners from this round. In Ligue 2, Dijon and Metz both won to keep themselves in the promotion places, with Nancy able to join them should they win away to Lens this evening. Just a quick word on another bit of news we have coming through about off the pitch with Jean-Michel Aulas and Vincent Labrune, who have been handed 2 match suspensions, with one of those games being a suspended sentence, following their unsavoury behaviour and statements towards the match officials during Marseille's match with Lyon in September. Both are banned for any official duties relating to next weekend's Ligue 1 fixtures, obviously meaning that Aulas will be banned for the derby at the weekend. So that is all your latest news. If you want to catch up and keep up with everything that's going on in French football, please head to our website, head to our Twitter feed. They're all in the links in the description of this video. We'll start off this week by talking about some managers in Liga who might be starting to teeter up on the edge. Lille have only scored 6 goals in 12 games and have 12 points on the board. Bordeaux have had some issues this week, as well as a couple of embarrassing losses. I'd say to get as a start, we'll start with Rennes. I think where there is a couple of rumours coming out that Philippe Montagnier might be on the brink here. Philip, do you think it's justified if he was to go?
Yes, I do. There's a columnist called Didier Roustan who does videos on for L'Equipe. He does this 1 to twice a week, and he's already basically criticised Montagnier's tactics, and not even tactics, attitude. He did it. He did it last week at Lorient, and he did it again against PSG. It's just so negative. The teams he sets out, they're just so defensive. And granted, against PSG, every side tries. The attempt is not to lose to PSG, which is fair enough. So playing really negative against them, you can see where he's coming from. But he did the same against Lorient, and it's not like Rennes have a particularly bad side. What he did against Lorient, he put Zéphane right back on the right wing, so right midfielder. And he put Ludovic Ball on the left wing, while he's a left back. Very, very defensive-minded players. Yes, Paul Georges Ntep is injured, but there's just not enough. You just feel he's not using enough, shall we say, positive energy to put in his players, so that the players go forward and try and win a game. So yeah, I would say he is in danger. It's been what now, 7 games without a win, but on the other side, they're only 8 or 9th, that is, I think. Yeah, they're 9th. So it's not like they're going to go down or something, but it's just you just sense that it's just not working, unfortunately, for Rennes and for Rennes and lots of good players they have.
Well, Eric, it was a big name really bringing into Rennes when he did join the club from bringing Real Sociedad into the Champions League. Is it the end of the line really for him? Has patience finally sort of run out?
I don't think so. I think that based on the financial investment the club made over the summer, bringing in the likes of Quintero, Pajot, CO, they've continued to invest in this squad. The defender Pedro Mendes, Ludovic Ball, Rennes have made considerable investment this season. And it looked like early in the season he really had things figured out. The club were in second. They had won 4 matches in a row. They weren't conceding. They were playing this 3-4-3 with Ludovic Ball and Stephen Moreira acting as wingbacks. Looked really dynamic. Ball in particular looked really tremendous. He's a very fine crosser of the ball, but during his time at Lens, he was really restricted by the fact that, as well as he could cross the ball, there weren't really a lot of options in terms of players who could finish there at Lens, and his talents are sort of wasted. I think he is a pretty adept player going forward on that left side. And it seems like things were working out, but now we look back at that win streak. I think that, with the exception of the victory over Lyon aside, those wins look a little bit more specious. Victories over Montpellier and Toulouse, okay, well, they're teams that are scrapping for relegation. And, beating Nantes is a creditable win enough, but Nantes had 2 men sent off. They finished that match with 9 men. Rennes scored both their goals with man advantages, and now they're, as Phil Brightly said, they're winless aside from victory in the Coupe de la Ligue over the midweek. And what it is to me is, I think it's not only, as Phil Brightly said, a lack of being adventurous. I think it also boils down to the fact that, in the absence of Ntep and Mexer, it seems as if Montagnier sort of lost a little bit of self-belief, lost a little bit of confidence in how he wants to set this team up. There's certainly enough talent there to score goals in the likes of CO, Ducore, Pedro Henrique, and Camille Grosicki are also pretty capable on the wings as well when used. But he keeps chopping and changing. Is his team playing, with 3 at the back? Are they playing 4-1-1? Are they playing 4-4-2? Quintero is another player who I think, was doing pretty well against PSG, but then was taken off for no apparent reason. I believe the game was still scoreless at the time. Rennes had certainly had their opportunities. So there just seems to be, to me, on the part of Montagnier, a lack of wanting to apply a consistent, not only consistent starting 11, but a consistent formation. And with the revolving door transfer policy that Rennes have had in place the last few years, that's really hindering these players' ability to get to know each other on the pitch, to get to develop an understanding that's going to make this attack succeed. And that's really, to me, what's holding this team back right now. They did very well, I think, defensively against PSG. Again, playing Fallou Diagne as a right back, you're obviously ceding a little bit of something going forward to play him there. But that's what it is. The talent's there. Montagnier just needs to have the self-belief to pick a formation, to pick an ideal 11, even in the face of injuries. Don't forget that Yoann Gourcuff will probably be included in the team once he's fit as well. And let this team have a chance to express themselves, because that's been denied to them so far in the way that Montagnier is setting them up. And he's not going to get fired, but the fact that no one outside of PSG is really showing themselves to be a strong and consistent side, it's almost as if the teams that are tied on 22, that's Saint-Etienne, Lyon, and Angers, are there by default. None of them have blown the doors off in terms of their performances this season. The Champions League is there for the taking. That's what's really frustrating. Montagnier just needs to decide what he wants to do and quit juggling this team and these players around.
And to me, it sounds like it might be the sort of the start at the end of the road. If you give a manager that amount of time, for me, I think he needs to start producing a little bit more. I know it's a weird year so far, but I think it might be a little bit of a worrying time. And we'll move on to another team that have been a little bit strange this week in Bordeaux, who obviously lost to Gazla Ajaccio. 2 wins on the bounce, and I thought we'd never ever be saying that. I know last week we didn't think they'd ever win, but didn't think we'd be saying that. But Philip, Willy Sagnol's been put under a little bit of pressure this week, and reports that some of his players are used about his tactics at the weekend. What do you make of the situation there?
I think it's a fact of the honeymoon period being over for Sagnol. He's not a bad manager, but I honestly think that he's trying to do something he's not even sure. The players are not even sure what they are supposed to be doing on the pitch, and it's just not working. I don't think he planned this season particularly well. Or rather, he wanted to do something. He had a plan, which to me was give youth its chance, and he's really not doing it the right way. So maybe he doesn't have the right backroom staff to do it. A bit like Gad had at Lyon, it's still trying to put square pegs in round holes, and of course it doesn't. Work. Still, the team selection, there are just things that you just can't really understand. But even so, I really don't think it's a case of Sagnol being bad, because since Blanc won the league with Bordeaux, they had a really good manager. Had Bordeaux in Francis Gillot. And there was just this problem that there just doesn't seem to be any fluency around the place, and it just seems to be, the football seems to be very negative. There seems to be lacking this spark, and it has been lacking for almost a solid 8 years, I think. It's been a really, really long time since we saw a Bordeaux side that was fluid, playing one-touch football, not being too physical, not making too many fouls, being able to keep the ball up front. It's just been all this negativity around the place. One of the main examples is Anthony Modeste. Anthony Modeste was a Bordeaux centre forward a couple of years back. He went to Germany. He went to Hoffenheim. He did reasonably well at Hoffenheim. He got his move at Cologne this summer, and he's doing fine at Cologne. Why can't a player like this, like Modeste, do that kind of stuff for Bordeaux? Because he's not a bad player. And I don't know, there just seems to be something wrong with how they play, or how maybe it's the ways they train, maybe it's the ways they prepare for games. I don't know, but I don't think my gut feeling is that sacking Sagnol will not change much. That's my gut feeling, because it's not going to go well. The season is not going to end well. Trio has been saying for almost a decade that he has no money, yeah, I don't really think that it's a manager's problem. I think it's a very deep problem that Bordeaux have. And they really, I'm not quite sure if it's the players or the way things are run, because of course the ultras are going to say, it's Trio's fault because he's responsible. He's the chairman, but we don't really know that, do we? So I don't know. That's it's a very strange one, and I'm not going to say sack Sagnol or don't sack Sagnol. I just don't see him being the particular problem. But even though, and I'm sure Eric will agree with me, he's not doing himself any favors with some of the team selections he's been doing lately.
Very true. I think rather than focus on Sagnol's job, which probably isn't quite under threat yet, Eric, just what is really going wrong tactically for him at the moment? What is he doing that's really being questioned?
Well, I mean, this is the thing. At the beginning of the season, I had pegged Bordeaux as a dark horse for the Champions League. The fact that Saint-Etienne and Monaco and Lyon were all be occupied with European competition during the early part of the season, I thought, Bordeaux, with the squad depth they have and the amount of young players they have, could really kick on and really push for a place in that top three, an improvement on last season. Last season, they had started the season pretty unevenly. It's not dissimilar to where they are now. They were giving up a lot of goals, and they were scoring a lot of goals. Then Diabate gets injured. They get thumped 5-1 by Lyon right before the winter break, and things looked really bad. Then they bring in Clément Chanton. They switch to a 4-3-1-2. It's a little bit overly defensive, but the formation worked. Bordeaux's defense looked a lot better. Diego Roland was scoring quite well. He was working off of Isaac Kiese-Thelen in a 4-3-1-2. Wabi Kazri was doing really well to support them. Bordeaux looked great, and they moved up the table. They finished in a European spot for the first time in a little while. And I was very high on Bordeaux to start the season, but again, to start this season, Sagnol looks totally at sea. He doesn't know what his best 11 are. He's constantly switching the players around. He's generally, again, injuries haven't hurt him. Sertic is a long-term miss. Diabate's missed some time as well, but he doesn't seem to know what he's doing. He's playing the likes of Henri Saivet in midfield. Saivet is a great player. He works hard. He's a willing runner, but is he a defensive midfielder that's gonna help shield that back four? I don't see that. He's just making a lot of mistakes. He's perhaps a little bit overly reliant on Wabi Kazri, who is a talented player. But let's face it, if he were a really talented player, would he still be playing in Ligue 1 at the age of 25 or 26 or however old he is? No, he'd be on the move to somewhere else. I mean, that was rumored this week, but for the quality of young players that Bordeaux have, I really would expect more, both defensively and going forward from this team. But it's down to the tactics. I mean, we've seen all of these players at one time or another be successful. And Roland couldn't stop scoring in the back end of last season. He's got 1 goal so far this year. He hasn't even really been a consistent starter until the last few matches. And for a lot of these younger players, I'm thinking of Roland, Kiese-Thelen, the fullbacks Guibert, and Gajic, who's had a rather uneven season. That's got to sap your confidence as well. And this combination of things, just I really don't know what's going on with Sagnol. He seemed to have it figured out towards the back end of last season, but the beginning of this season, perhaps the Europa League qualifying aside, Bordeaux just looked totally lost, and that's got to be on the manager. And again, similar to, as I mentioned with Montagnier at Rennes, with Ligue 1 being so open this year, for Bordeaux to have the placement that they have at this point in the season is really, really disappointing. There's no reason this team shouldn't be top 5, top 6 with the talent that they have. I know Sertic is a big miss, but yeah, it's just not doing it for me.
I have a feeling he might turn it around yet, but it is worrying times at Bordeaux. But I think, personally, there might be more worrying times at Lille at the moment. I mentioned earlier 6 goals in 12 games. I mean, we mentioned that there might be a lack of goals early on, but I think half a goal a game is a little bit of a worrying spell, isn't it, Philip?
For Bordeaux, you mean?
For Lille.
Sorry, I wasn't. I wasn't there. I covered the game at Nice. It finished 0-0. Watching it on BT Sports, the commentators really were not too kind on the quality of the game, which was more than what which was harsher than what it actually was. What Renard situation is that Lille are now extremely close to the relegation zone, and they were travelling to a Nice side who were high-flying, high-scoring until they went to Gazette d'Ajaccio. Nobody knows what happened there, but it happened. And Lille, they weren't that adventurous, but watching. If you watch the game, they had a Stonewall penalty. They had a chance late on. And they weren't that negative when you compare them to Nice, who are arguably the most pleasing side to watch since the start of the season. So it's I'm sure we're going to have a debate on this, but I don't know. I think what Renard did at Nice at least is completely logical. Saying this, I mean, I've said it before that I give Renard until I would say November to turn things around. It's not exactly working, but I can see that he's still trying to sort out his formation, his tactics, what his starting 11 is, his best starting 11 is, and I think he'll get there. I'm pretty sure he won't get sacked anytime soon, and that he'll ensure that Lille finish comfortably mid-table by March, I would say. He just needs some time because Girard did leave the club in quite a state. So that's from what I saw this weekend. It's not all doom and gloom. They actually could have won that game, which would have been a great result, really.
There is reports we've mentioned on the website in the last day or so. It's a really great article. If you do get the time, please check it out on Sofiane Boufal and some of the slightly unsavoury things he's done in the last week. That might be putting it a little bit lightly, but he does seem to be a little bit of a pain in the backside at the moment, as us British would say. But Eric, they need to start sticking the ball in the back of the net, don't they? And Sofiane Boufal needs to take more of a leadership role, in my opinion. Do you agree?
Well, I mean, define leadership. He wants to be the main man at all times. But the issue is, Renard has showed himself to be a great man manager at international level, but I just don't know that he's cut out for the club match, or for the club game. He's got this. He's brought in a fairly decent group of players over the summer. Lenny Nangis and Eric Boteac are both players who have done well at various points in their career in Ligue 1, scoring goals, getting assists. Gadji Talo is a decent prospect as well. Veteran defenders coming in the likes of Sun Tzu and Savelli. I think that in terms of the quality of players brought in, Lille did pretty well in the summer. Guillaume and Guirassy are decent prospects as well, but it's almost as if Lille's hierarchy brought in these players, said, okay, this is an interesting group of players, good defenders, good young strikers, some decent wide players. You've got a decent talent in Boufal on your hands, and just dump them in Renard's lap. And, this is the issue. How do you knit an 11 together that shows cohesion going forward if this is your squad? And that to me is really the issue. I don't envy Renard's position, and I agree with Philip. He has tried to be positive, but there's just simply a lack of a lack of quality on this team. No one seems likely to score outside of Buffal. Talo is a striker. Guillaume and Guirassy are strikers too, but they're more adept at holding up the ball and letting play revolve around them than they are putting the ball in the back of the net. And that's the issue. And now we have these revelations about Buffal's attitude, and if he's supposed to be this talented go-to player that is the talisman of this team, you can see why it's not working for Lille. I think that it's almost as if Lille need a complete teardown. This club has relied over the past few years on sort of the last vestiges of that team that was a title winner and competing in the Champions League. I'm talking about the likes of Mavuba and Balmont, and certainly Vincent Anyama is still a capable keeper, but what that's done is really shackled the team. You add Munir Abadi to that mix, and you've got three defensively oriented midfielders, and whatever you put ahead of them is going to be necessarily limited by the fact that you only really have three attackers. Even when the team played with three at the back, the likes of Sidibe and Corchia as wingbacks, that's not look like it's going to come off either. This team needs a real clear out in terms of its veteran players, and it needs more of a top-down approach to its transfer policy and its management. And that's not in evidence right now, and that's why Lille, a club of considerable history and resources, are where they're at. A lot of what they had last season going forward was down to the likes of Lopez and Origi and Roux. All of them are now gone. There haven't been comparable players who can do something going forward that have been brought in, and that's why this club is struggling. It's a lack of oversight from the top of the club down to the bottom. Renard may not be the best man for the job, but I'm not sure how anybody else could really wring anything better than what he's done out of this Lille squad. It's just been a really abject start to the season.
I think that's the case for the three teams we actually debated so far. Is there someone available that will be able to do a better job? For Rennes' case, maybe, but for Bordeaux and for Lille, I'm really not sure, because it's a really tough job. It's two big cities, two big football clubs, and just coming in almost halfway through the season, not easy. I mean, really, really not easy. And I do agree with Eric that offensively, at least, Lille do need a complete rehaul on how they create chances. But again, there's a negativity under Girard was just so enormous that these things do take time. But sacking just like Seigneur, sacking Renard wouldn't do much good to the place. And I don't think. I don't feel all this negativity when I'm watching Lille as much as when I'm watching Bordeaux. I think people are really trying to make things work, and that in time it will work.
But
I hope for Lille fans.
What would you have done? Lille sell Adama Traore to Monaco, get a lot of money for him. I think it was 14 million euros. But what's the reinvestment? It's 2 million here, 1 million there. Buy 2 or 3 players of a higher quality than these prospects. I have nothing wrong with buying the likes of a Nangis or a Boteac, but spend a little bit more to get a player who's of more proven quality.
It's always
that's you see Eric, this is a problem with French clubs. I mean it's all about budget and saying there's no money, and most chairmen will tell their managers, let's put all our money on youth development and buy a couple of players from Ligue 2, which is what Lille have done, basically.
Buy low, sell high. That's
exactly
the Ligue 1
a la Monaco.
Yeah, and it is really worrying to hear someone like Sofiane Buffal be so petulant, supposedly in training sessions, with kicking the ball away during dribbling drills and not seeming to put the effort in a midweek Coupe de la Ligue thing. He needs a good clip round the ear, I think, and another person who might need maybe a little bit of a talking to.
A lot of players do actually. A lot of players, when they have that kind of talent, they just they're very, 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 very young, very, very talented, so they believe their own hype. So you can understand that.
Exactly, it's the arrogance of them, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're all just jealous in the end. They'll probably say that. But moving on to someone
Ben
else.
Arthur was worse at his age. I guarantee
that's
that.
the point. Someone else who probably will be sitting on the naughty step this week is Majid Waris for his red card for Lorient at the weekend. Eric, it was a pretty manic moment from the striker, wasn't it? That might be a little bit light.
Yeah, and it's surprising. Looking at Waris' disciplinary record over his time in Turkey and Russia, he's had the odd yellow card, but he's never had any sort of issues in this regard. It was just, I understand it's a derby match and your emotions are running high, especially having gone behind or being behind at that point. But you've really got to let your emotions be under better control. Guingamp and Lorient both started the season pretty well. I think they both play attractive football, but just have a little bit more faith in your team going forward, no matter what the result is at the moment, and things will come off. And Waris had been denied by a good save by Losel earlier in the match. I mean, he had a reason to be frustrated, perhaps on a personal level as well, but you can't react like that. And it's not the first incident we've seen in Ligue 1 this season. Nicolas Rainville, the referee, was quite right to send him and the Guingamp player Sankare, I want to say, off at the time, and there's just no place for that. It's Briand was lucky not to have been seriously injured in that. He reacted quickly enough, but it's just silly from Waris, because now he leaves Lorient in the lurch for the next handful of matches in terms of squad depth and having attacking options, in addition to damaging his own stock. I mean, look, let's face it, this player's played at some pretty big clubs like Spartak and Trabzonspor, are decent European level clubs. If he had gone to Lorient and been able to score 12 or 15 goals, replicating that form that he showed a couple years ago, he could have certainly had a big money move to a club that plays European football elsewhere. But if he's going to, turn in this sort of emotional display, that's certainly going to not help his cause. 3 goals in 8 matches, I think he'd scored to that point. A decent enough scoring return. He's just not. What's going through his head? It's hurting his team. It's hurting his individual chances at moving to a bigger club than Lorient. It's just really disappointing.
Speaking of Lorient, what a turnaround! They're 8th. I mean, I didn't realize how their form. One loss in 8. That's absolutely massive, really. I really didn't expect that. And they played pretty good sides like Marseille, Bordeaux, Caen, Monaco. That's bloody well done. But yeah, that guy had his moment of madness. That was pretty bad. That was probably one of the worst reactions I saw. But the referees are. Yep.
I was going to say, I still can't explain it. I watched it. Admittedly, I didn't catch the Lorient game, so I've just watched the highlights, and I'm going, where has this come from? Where has that come from anyone? I can't even imagine myself on a normal night getting annoyed that far by a penalty decision. It must have been something else, because he absolutely flies at Briand, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, maybe there were a few words between the two of them. Some things just don't get. You can't really explain them. It's one of those Zidane versus Materazzi moments, which I don't know. Well, one of the things I could compare it to was I think it was in the late 90s where Paolo Di Canio pushed the referee to the ground in a moment of madness. I think it was that type of madness. It was that high. He was that pissed off, and that annoyed. Sorry.
I will allow a secret into that moment of madness from Di Canio. It's been talked about in the last couple of weeks in the English press, and supposedly he was wondering why other people weren't backing him after he pushed the referee. So that takes you a little bit into the mind of Paolo Di Canio for a moment. But keeping on about odd moments. Philippe Nkudu scored for Marseille for the weekend for his Nantes and had a bit of a, let's say, exuberant celebration. Do you think it was the right move? Do you think he should have done that? Was it a little unsavoury?
Oh, it was definitely unsavory, but I spoke to Marseille fans all day about this. Why is Nkudu booed? I mean, I get that he left not for Marseille, and they're not rivals. I mean, there's no been real histories. There's no been a cup game where a side went through against the Wolves. Put that into brackets. I just don't get why the not ultras would boo Nkudu just because he left for Marseille. I mean, do they have to? Do the ultras have to boo a player that goes to another side? And it's not like he went to a small team. He went to Marseille, and Nkudu probably had probably didn't appreciate this kind of reception, and he didn't have a very good first half. Let's be honest. Most of Marseille play was on the right hand side, where Alessandrini shown. And in the second half, at half-time, Alessandrini had to go off, and Nkudu went from the left wing to the right wing, scored his goal quite early on in the second half, and decided to tell to the whole world what he thought of not booing. It's not a good. It's just not a good reaction. But I could never condone that kind of reaction. But just don't understand why he's booed.
Eric, what did you think to it?
It makes sense to me. Nkudu, as Phil rightly says, this is a move up. This is a player who's done well for Les Bleuets and Les Espoirs. I mean, he's one of France's best prospects, and I think based on his performances last season, and he deserves to be starting week in and week out. I think he's a tremendously talented player, and it's a natural reaction. He's 20 years old, and this is the Beaujoirs are always a feisty, fiery atmosphere, and perhaps a bit of that stuck with him, and it just leapt to the surface, and I can't really say I blame him. We talk so much about training and talking to the press and the way we react, but I don't want to see reactions like Waris's week in, week out, but a reaction of the likes of Nkudu's isn't a bad thing, because it shows that the player's playing with passion and fire, and they're not out to injure anybody or be malicious or show this petulant, virulent side, but just to say, hey, I'm here for a reason, and I'm not scoring to spite you. I'm scoring because I'm someone who's looking to further my career and demonstrate my talent at one of France's biggest clubs. Because despite Marseille's struggles this season, that is what they are.
Completely agree.
It's an excellent point, and I think whilst maybe a little bit petulant, at the same time it's not on quite the level of a Adebayor slide to the away fans across the pitch. It's not that malicious, at least, but it's not too bad of a thing, I don't think. I think a little bit of passion, even if you are being booed, is good. But another positive result for Marseille, really. Philippe, is there shoots of sort of growth at the club? Are they starting to get back on their feet?
I think so. I really do. Defense has been good, and if you're talking from the goalkeeper to the centre forward, you have Ricky playing next to Nkudu. He's doing very, very well. I thought he had an excellent game. The only bleak point of yesterday was maybe Lucas Silva lost quite a lot of balls, but in the first half, not in the second half. And then you have the creativity from Alessandrini. I don't know if he's injured long term or short term. I have no idea. But He really gave Marseille that bit of creative edge. I thought he was quite good. Like I said before, Nkudu didn't have a particularly good first half, but he scored the winning goal. He scored the solitary goal. Batshuayi can put the ball in the back of the net when he's given the opportunity. So that's pretty good. That's actually, I think, a very important victory. But I'm not sure where that leaves Marseille regarding the Europa League. Does Michel wants to play it or doesn't he? I think personally, Marseille need to do what they can to finish the highest they possibly can. But he's built something good. He's built something good, I think.
Eric, do you see the green shoots of life coming back to the Velodrome?
Yeah, I did. I think that not certainly Miss Valentin Rongier in central midfield. The combination of Doe and Gomis that they had there throughout the, or sorry, Doe and Toure that they had there throughout the match, wasn't offering much going forward to really test Marseille in central areas. But Sabali and Mwambe were largely kept quiet after really turning up the heat on Caen last weekend. I think that this was to silence not so emphatically was especially was certainly a creditable performance defensively from Marseille. I think that Barada came on and did well. Perhaps being dropped to the bench is going to serve as a little bit of motivation for him. Nkudu, not just because of the goal, deserves to be there week in and week out. Yes, Phillips rightly mentions that the most of the play was coming through Alessandrini in the beginning of the match, but a lot of Nkudu's effectiveness is how effectively he's able to track back and how much he really did well in limiting Sabali, who we know to be a very dangerous player going forward. Not only in limiting the opposition fullback, but it also allows Benjamin Mendy, who had a pretty decent match, to get forward as well. This seems to be really starting to come together. We'd seen brief signs of this against PSG a few matches ago, but now it's a tough environment. To go there and get this result is really a credit to the players. Remy Cabella had a couple seeming moments of madness where he looked fit to boil over, but he also had some really nice periods of play operating there in the number 10 role. And if we can play some sort of if Marseille can play this 4-2-3-1 with Cabella through the middle and Nkudu and Barada or Alessandrini out wide, I think it looks really promising going forward. If this team can duplicate these performances over a string of matches, I'll be more ready to believe. But again, not to win is always a tough task. For Marseille to go there and get this result, and again, Barada's clearance off the line certainly allowed them to get 3 points instead of 1. Let's be honest, not certainly had their chances in this match. But yeah, this is let's give it a couple more matches before we call it a renaissance, but the right signs were there for Marseille on the evening.
They've got a pretty good, interesting running now. They're home to Nice, away to Saint-Etienne, home to Monaco, away to Rennes, and then home to Montpellier and Gazélec. It's quite a challenging running until the winter break, and it's going to be quite good fun to watch them. It's going to be very interesting to see their evolution until the end of the season.
And it certainly doesn't get much harder than Gazélec at the end of that run, I think.
Oh yes. Just one thing, Nathan, on this. So Gazélec won 2 games in a row. Troyes lost at home to Lyon, even though and I think Lyon needed a penalty to win this game, and Troyes were down to 10 men for the majority of the match. Troyes currently have 4 points from 12 games. I did a bit of research, and since Ligue 1 went back to 20 teams, which was 2002, 2003, I think, yes it was, and I did line up all the sides that finished bottom and see what's the lowest of the low, the Derby County of Ligue 1, if you will. And it's Arles Avignon with 20 points in 2010-2011, who who were extremely bad because they bought 15 players, and I mean, nobody knows what they did that summer. Anyway, if Troyes continue with this same rich vein of form, they maybe break this record. It's a very unwanted record, but Gazélec seems to have found something. Seems to have found a bit of formation with a 4-4-2 diamond-shaped midfield, and Troyes just doesn't seem to be working. Just doesn't. I mean, yeah.
Is that a
so
prediction?
they could, they could break the record. It is possible.
Are you willing to stick your neck on the line? Are you saying that you think Troyes will get the least amount of points in a Liga season since
I think
they'll be
down there. So we say they'll be down there.
A safe
20
bet.
to 25 points. 20, let's say between 15 and 25. That's quite a big guess, but yeah, why not? They'll probably do better than 11 points.
Right. Okay. We'll move on now to a really, really big game outside of Ligue 1 in the Champions League this week as Paris Saint-Germain head to Spain to take on Real Madrid. Philip, well, I think we've mentioned this before. We mentioned in the last game that it was a very big game. This is a very big game coming up on Tuesday, isn't it?
Yep, it's as big as it gets for PSG. Another very, very important game for Laurent Blanc against Rafael Benitez. It will be very important to see who will be fit for Real Madrid. And very interesting to see how PSG will try and play this, and moreover, how will Benitez be able to what formation Benitez will use. More importantly, this basically will tell us if PSG are completely inferior to Real Madrid or not. Because if they are, they can basically give up on winning the Champions League for another season. So they need to show character first and foremost. It's not just about the players, because it's not going to be the same as the home leg. At least I hope not, because it was there wasn't much to write about in the home leg. I really do expect a very, very tough trip to Madrid for PSG.
It certainly is, Eric. I'm just looking through some team news now, and it seems James might be part of the squad for Real Madrid on Tuesday. It looks like with Gareth Bale or Karim Benzema not
part of the squad, but not
training
to start, was my understanding.
Yeah, they've not trained yesterday, so they don't look like they're playing in. Danny Carvajal will probably also be missing out. Do you think they've probably got enough now to take on PSG with a couple of little injuries their side as well?
Yeah, I would look for Modric to replace Vasquez or Casemiro in the 11 that played at the Parc des Princes last 2 weeks ago, and for Modric to give Real a bit more creativity going forward. Keep Hesse in that lineup. He showed aside from his injury in the past few years, that he's able to contribute a lot going forward. Of course, Ronaldo had his share of chances against PSG as well, and I'd look for Real to get at PSG quite a bit more. PSG are really going to be missing a lot creatively, with Pastore still likely to miss the match as well, and then Ibrahimovic will start again. My views on that, and I really can't see anything other than a Real victory here.
Me neither.
To see them scoring more, to see PSG scoring more than Real Madrid, it's just not going to happen. I'm probably a 2-1 for Real Madrid, and that'll give them 10 points, and that'll leave PSG hoping that either Shakhtar or Malmö can pull off a result against Real Madrid, who, even if they're playing a second-string squad, in preparation for the Clasico or what have you, I just don't see that result happening. And it's really a shame that Blanc doesn't have what we presume the gumption to rearrange the team in such a way that sets them up better for giving Los Blancos a run for their money.
And there's also the worry that I'm hearing that Marquinhos and David Luiz are facing late fitness tests, and if neither of those can make it, it makes it even more worrying with someone like Ronaldo coming at you. I don't think.
Oh, right. I forgot Marquinhos didn't play on Friday.
Yeah, so it could be Serge Aurier, I believe, maybe even starting in the centre of defence, which I love Serge Aurier. I don't think he's a centre-back.
Actually, Aurier had a decent game at Rennes at centre-back, but it wasn't. It probably won't be the same quality. It was Rennes, and this is Real Madrid, so it's not the same thing.
Yeah, and one of the best forwards in the world. I don't think. I think I would take Grosicki on the every day of the week over Ronaldo, but. We will move on to.
No disrespect to Quintero and company, but
yeah, they're not quite on that level at the moment. But we will move on. And Marquinhos is definitely out, so it will be David Luiz who faced that late fitness test. So we'll see how that goes. But we will move on to news in England, really, involving a former Ligue 1 manager, as Rémi Garde is confirmed as Aston Villa manager. Just to note for any Midlands fans, that's spelled Remi. I know that was a pretty big mistake on their end on Twitter earlier this week.
Yeah, I saw that.
as that was announced. So just to confirm, that's how it's spelled. So, Philip, what do you think to the appointment there of Rémi Girard and Rémi Garde? I always do that again.
It's risky. I mean, looking at Garde's CV, it's quite risky. But he was under pressure at Lyon, and he did quite well. And now he has to do it all over again at Aston Villa. I don't know if he'll be given the funds. Maybe you know more about this than I do, Nathan. But it's to me, it's all going to be about giving Youth its chance, because the last time I checked, Randy Lerner wants to sell the club. He's not really ready to invest in it. I just see this as being extremely risky for Rémi Garde. It's going to be very, very tough. His target is obviously to keep Aston Villa in the Premiership, and that's going to be quite tough as well. We see sides that are not that bad. We saw Norwich defending extremely well against Manchester City. Like we said last week, he will sort out the defence. I think I do reckon Villa can have a good solid back line if managed properly, and I think this is where he has to start. But very, very tough job. Good luck to him.
Eric, you have almost a better scoop than anyone, really, on Rémi Garde, having been a former Lyon manager himself. So, is he the right man for Aston Villa to steer them in the right way? I mean, Tim Sherwood was probably seen as a more offensive coach, and maybe Garde is what they need from a defensive point of view.
I mean, Garde's teams did do well defensively, but at the same time, the fact that he's French, the fact that he's had so much success as head of Lyon's academy, bringing in this bevy of players, Fekir, Lacazette, Tolisso, etc., to Lyon's first team over the 3 seasons of his tenure, means that whether Villa want to admit it or not, is a real reason why he is being given this job. And it's a lose-lose proposition. If these players don't work out, I'm talking about the likes of Veretout and Ayew in particular. We've had decent performances so far from the likes of Amavi and Gaye. Then we say, oh, okay, well, these players were obviously talented in Ligue 1. Garde just couldn't reach them. Okay, fair enough. But that's inane, because what he based his success upon at Lyon was bringing these players through the academy. The players he's got on hand now, even Jack Grealish, even Veretout, who are a little bit younger, are still professionals. They've been playing first-team football on a professional level over multiple seasons. They're not all of a sudden going to see this big, great leap in their development because they're being spoken to in French. It's inane to think that what Garde can do is bring this team around to pull them clear of the relegation scrap. I don't know what sort of formation you could play this team in that is going to make them have the necessary solidity at the back and give them enough impetus and attack. I don't know what 11 you could put on the field that's their best combination. I mean, yeah, Ayew scored a lot of goals last season for Lorient, but he's never a striker. Rudy Gestede is really the only center forward on this team. He's not of a high enough quality to lead the line for a Premier League side. There's just not the unless Gard's going to be given a transfer kitty of, I would say, at least 20 to 30 million in the winter window, which seems unlikely given Lerner's general parsimony in terms of money being spent over the past few years. He only bought this summer because of the sales of Benteke and Delph. Let's be honest. It doesn't make any sense from any number of perspectives. I think that as much as I like Gard as a manager, I appreciate the job he did with Lyon, he was only able to have success with those players because of two reasons. One, he knew the young players intimately from their time at the academy, and two, because let's face it, Lyon, even when they were at their ebb 2 or 3 years ago, still have an infinitely larger amount of resources than just about any other team in Ligue 1, aside from Monaco, PSG, and Marseille. They're still, you're still going to finish 3rd, 4th, 5th, simply because your resources are so much greater than every other club. So to expect Gard to be able to parachute in, whisper in these young, quote-unquote young, French players' ears, and to suddenly make them, the creative talents that you want Veretout to be, and the marauding midfielder that you want Gaye to be, and the double-digit scorer you want Ayew to be, it doesn't make any sense, and it's not going to come off that way. And I feel bad for the club. I feel bad for Gard. I feel bad for these players. None of them are going to come off the better in this come the end of this season. We talk about clubs that could set a record for least number of points scored. Count Villa in that list. I like Aston Villa. I like what they have. I sort of they're not. I don't have a favorite team in England, but they're a club I have sympathy for. I like to see them do well, but the resources aren't there. If we look at the windows other teams had over the summer, Villa had a lot of untested prospects. Other teams in and around them, to use the cliche, were pushing on and building on what they had. Villa were doing a total teardown, and they were already on the brink of relegation when Sherwood was brought in. How does that make any sense? It doesn't, top to bottom. And I think that Villa are really going to regret the way they operated this summer, taking so many gambles, and they're going to regret this appointment. It's not going to make a significant difference to me.
It does smell a little of desperation to me as well, really. I think the real plus about Gard is I've been reading around on Twitter, and I'm especially trying to pay attention to those teammates of when in his Arsenal days, and I was reading about Lee Dixon mentioning the positive for Villa fans is he is a very good English speaker, and he understands the game in England, obviously having played here, and is one of those in the dressing room, at least. He's not met them as a coach, but in the dressing room then was a positive influence. So he could imagine him being a good one in the dressing room. But you make a lot of very good points there, Eric, about the success was based on youth and bringing through those clubs. And the 3.5-year deal suggests that they might be giving him some time, and they've not been so gung-ho in the past, Aston Villa, although Randy Lerner is looking to sell, so that might be why. But
the big question is, will he be sacked if Villa go down, or will he won't be given a chance to say, okay, we build, win the championship next year, then we can get promoted again, start again? Because this is, I don't want to sound too negative, but this is where I think it will go. Personally. Because if Lerner just says, keep us up, otherwise I'm going to sack you, just disappointment is even riskier than what I previously thought.
It's
so
true.
Obviously, I don't think anyone has the easy answer to that question. But if he is not, if Villa are relegated, which is more than likely, what's going to be the board's reaction? Is he going to say, well, you're not as good as you're not as good as they say you are. See ya. We're getting someone English for the championship who understands lower league, because Gard's not really that familiar with the British lower leagues, is he? Yeah, this is going to be quite tough. Like I said, it's a risky move. It's a guy who was on this show a couple of months back, Brendan McFarlane. He actually mentioned quite rightly Santini and Le Guen, who are two managers who won leagues with Lyon when they were completely tearing apart Ligue 1, more than PSG these days, and they failed in England. So what's it going to be for Gard? And moreover, will he be given time? That's a big question.
And we sit there discuss to say, at least he's been in England before. I think that gives him the slightest advantage over those two. And I think Eric's got a point. If these issues are probably more deep rooted in Villa. There's been some issues with not buying players, not selling players at the right time, and for me, I'm not deep suited in a Villa community, but I know a few fans of the club, and I always feel like for the size of that club in the area that they are, which is there's not an enormous amount of clubs in the Midlands that are in the Premier League. I mean, there's West Brom, but that's no offence to them, maybe a smaller club. Villa are a former European champion. That you would think that more players of that area in the second biggest city in England would be coming through that club. I mean, there's two or three really, really good players that get in Premier League attention at Birmingham City and Damari Gray. There's a few more as well there that have gone through the ranks recently, like Nathan Redmond, who's a England under-21 international, Jack Butland, who's sub-goalkeeper for England, who's terrific. And why have they never come through at Villa? When was the last Villa youngster that really shone a light for that club? And Jack Grealish, yeah, Jack Grealish is a fantastic footballer, and that next one. But it's been a long while since I've seen one personally. Come all the way through.
Where did it all go wrong? Because when O'Neill was in charge, they had a very good squad and they were pushing for Champions League. As they almost got the Champions League, it's just that the squad was too thin. I'm talking about the days where Agbonlao was young. You had Ashley Young on the left-hand side, Stuart Downing, you had Stilian Petrov, you had Melbourne at the back. You had a really, really good squad, and Lerner was all about we're going to build, we're going to improve the academy, give youth his chance. So you have players like Clark. I think it was Delph. Is he a youth product? Delph.
He's originally from Leeds. Delph.
Oh, he's from Leeds.
Yes.
Albrighton. I thought he was all right. I mean, when he came out, I mean, he's not doing too badly at Leicester. I don't know. I just don't see where it went wrong. I just maybe taking the wrong managers, because when O'Neill left, and I think he left at a very critical time of the season. I think it was a week before the start of a given season, and then Villa basically rushed into getting someone, and then there was McLeish and there was Houllier, just didn't fit the bill, and Lerner seems to have given up on the whole project of making Villa a decent, successful Premiership side that can compete with Spurs as Champions League wannabes. And now it's now is a major aim is to stay up.
Let's move a little bit back to Remy Gard a little bit, Eric, if we can, just to sort of curb the sort of detour we've gone on. Taking all that into account, though, the potential deep-seated sort of issues that might be at Villa, which are at many clubs that struggle in Football League, is he the right man to turn all that around? I mean, he's got a lot of experience with youth. He might not be in charge of transfers at the club. I don't think that will be the case. So, can he? Is his hands a little tied?
Yeah, unless he's given money in the winter window to bring in players after having had this next 2 months to observe the club in action and to get more of a sense for the Premier League on a managerial basis, then once he's got his feet on the ground, then give him some money. If Randy Lerner really wants this club to stay up, I do think Remy Gard is a decent manager. But under these circumstances, it's going to be very tough. And the club need to really show backing of him and allow him to bring in players that he thinks are going to fit the bill. You know, watching the match right now, we've already seen Kevin McDonald make 2 substitutions. Villa are 2 goals down, and it's down to silly defensive errors and poor goalkeeping. Let Gard use his knowledge of Ligue 1 to bring in proven players, not these quote-unquote prospects, and the likes of Veretout and Ayew in particular. I have no problem with Gaye and Amavi, I should say that, are the French players they brought in this summer. I think they're both solid players who have good potential for the Premier League. But let him bring in players who are going to make a real and substantial difference. We talked about Marseille potentially wanting to sell N'Koulou. That could be an option for central defense. And there's other options. That's just an example. But Gard has not shown, nothing in his resume shows that he's the type of manager to parachute in and save a club Tony Pulis style. That's why this doesn't make any sense to me. He's someone who shows a great patience and willingness to develop youth at a consistent and logical progression that makes sense for both the player and the club. Great. But how does that fit into what Villa need right now? Especially if he's not given any control over transfers. It doesn't, plain and simple. And that's really all I have to say about this appointment. It's disappointing because I think it's going to hurt Gard's reputation. It's going to hurt Villa's chances of staying in the Premier League. It's going to hurt the careers of those players who went to England in the personages of Ayew and Veretout. And it's just a shame all around.
Philip, linking on to something Eric said there about this possibly being the wrong appointment of Villa in the wrong position, if Aston Villa were in, say, a Swansea or a Stoke sort of position, mid-table, wanting to build, would that be the right appointment for Gard then, when Villa are a bit more stable? Would that be a more, obviously it's a more idyllic situation, but do you think his skill set are more suited to that sort of style of management where he can build a club from where it is?
Yeah, it all depends on whether he's given time or not. But obviously, you get less pressure. You get less pressure from the fans, less pressure from the media, and you don't get this question asked every time. So, do you think you can save the club? Do you think you're going to go down if you're in mid-table and you settle? But right now, Aston Villa need structure and like as has been said before, Gard will bring this from the back. He'll work his he'll do what he's good at is building the youth and just reinstalling confidence into the players. And I'm sure he'll be able to do something decent. But the question is, if it doesn't come off straight away, will he be given time? And that's really the big question, really.
I have one final question. We have gone over time, but we expected to this evening. It's a very quick one, Eric, and to both of you at the end, but I'll go to Eric first. If Gard struggles, do you think that will be a tarnish that might happen for Ligue 1 managers going to the Premier League in the future? I know it's maybe a little bit harsh to judge it on one manager as per se, but could it tarnish a little bit?
No, and that's why Gard is being brought into Villa, because he's a manager without a reputation, so to speak, besides his time at Lyon. He's relatively inexperienced, and I think that anybody who looks at his CV, provided this job does go south, is going to take into consideration the total train wreck that Villa is from a squad perspective and from a club perspective. And that's going to be taken into account, unless Villa gets thumped week in and week out, which they won't. I give Gard enough credit for that. This isn't going to be a black mark on his reputation, or that of Ligue 1 managers. We saw how well Houllier had done at Liverpool. There's plenty of past experience to show that Ligue 1 managers shouldn't be damned by what they've done. Villa's a mess. I don't expect anybody to. Arsene Wenger. There's your argument for French managers in Liga. Love him or hate him, the consistent success he's had at Arsenal, especially in this moneyed new era, is incredible. And he's done everything from making astute signings in the past couple of years, and in the past with the likes of Vieira, Adebayor, Petit, and other players, and bringing through young players. There's no knock on French managers based on the success of Remy Gard over the next 5 months or 6 months at Aston Villa. Plain and simple.
Philip, you mentioned a few that struggled in the past in England, and there's plenty more where those come on from, and we are. But let's flip this slightly just for your final question, Philip. Remy Gard has also been tipped as maybe a Arsene Wenger successor if it goes well. Do you think that could be a possibility? Do you think he could make that kind of step up should this go well?
In 10 years' time, maybe, but no, not yet. No. To answer your original question, it could very well tarnish his resume, because some managers did try in England, thinking, yeah, okay, well, it's not very tactically evolved, and it wasn't. But now it is. You've got quite a lot of managers who know their tactics.
And they have to keep.
So it could go horribly wrong if he's not given time. But if he's given time, he'll prove to everyone that he can make things happen.
It's certainly
he can improve the club. He can improve the club, definitely.
Certainly going to be interesting. I don't think he'll be enjoying the game he's watching at the moment, where there's the Villa side are 2-0 down. But I'm sure he'll start work tomorrow and see how that goes. But that's all from us this week at the Get French Football Show. Thank you to Eric and Philip for joining me this week, and we will all see you next week, hopefully. Same time, same place. Good night, everyone.